The air in the hospital room thinned as Dr. Gregory's expression shifted. My husband Nicholas gripped my hand with artificial concern, his wedding band digging into my skin. "It was just an accident, right, Olivia?" His voice carried a warning edge that made the nurse glance up from her clipboard. I stared at the ceiling, each breath igniting fire across my fractured ribs. 3 hours earlier, my mother-in-law Vanessa had stood at the top of our staircase, her lips curled into a smile I'd never forget, and pushed me with both hands. The impact of each hardwood step had painted my body with bruises that now bloomed beneath my hospital gown like a violent garden. "Tell them you tripped, dear," Vanessa urged, her designer handbag clutched against her cashmere sweater, voice dripping with manufactured concern. "You've always been somewhat clumsy." My name is Olivia. I'm 34 and a former interior designer. This is the story of how I turned a murder attempt into liberation. The monitor beside me beeped steadily as I remembered the moment with perfect clarity. I'd been carrying laundry upstairs when Vanessa appeared at the top, having let herself in with the key Nicholas had given her despite my repeated objections. Our argument about her unannounced visits escalated quickly. "This is my son's house," she'd sneered, stepping closer. "You're just the replacement wife. The first one knew her place." Before I could respond, her manicured hands connected with my shoulders. The push wasn't accidental. It was deliberate, calculated, and accompanied by a satisfied smile that now haunted me from across the hospital room. Mrs. Reynolds, the nurse, whose name tag read Heather, interrupted my thoughts. "I need to examine your injuries privately. Hospital policy." She gave Nicholas and Vanessa a pointed look. "I'm her husband," Nicholas protested, his jawline tightening. "And you both need to wait outside," Heather finished firmly. "Now please." Once they left, Heather's professional demeanor softened. "Olivia, I need you to be honest with me. These injuries are consistent with a fall, but the pattern suggests you were pushed. Did someone push you?" I hesitated. Nicholas would never believe me over his mother. Vanessa had spent the last 3 years systematically undermining me, and my husband remained willfully blind to it all. "I have proof," I whispered, surprised by my own courage. Heather leaned closer. "What kind of proof?" "Security cameras." My voice grew stronger. "I installed them 2 months ago after my jewelry started disappearing. I hadn't told Nicholas about them. I needed to know what was happening when I wasn't home. The stairs are covered by one of the cameras." Heather's eyes widened. "May I?" she asked, gesturing to my phone. I nodded, pulling up the security app with my uninjured hand. The footage was crystal clear. Vanessa's face twisted with malice, her hands extending, the deliberate push. My fall was brutal to watch, but what happened next was worse. Vanessa stood at the top of the stairs, watching me lie motionless at the bottom before calmly walking down, stepping over my body and making herself a cup of tea in my kitchen. She'd waited 15 minutes before calling Nicholas, and only then did she call for an ambulance. "Oh my God," Heather whispered, her professional composure cracking. "Olivia, I need to make a call. This is attempted murder." "Nicholas won't believe it," I said softly. "He never does." "He won't have a choice this time," Heather replied, her jaw set. "I'm calling the police. This isn't just domestic abuse. She waited before getting you help. She wanted you to be seriously injured." As Heather stepped out, I heard Vanessa's voice in the hallway. "Nicholas, darling, maybe we should look into putting Olivia in therapy. These accusations about me, her paranoid behavior with those cameras, it's not healthy." "I know, Mom." Nicholas's response made my heart sink. "Once she's better, we'll get her the help she needs." I closed my eyes, tears sliding down my cheeks. 3 years of gaslighting, of having my things moved or broken with Nicholas, telling me I must have misplaced them, of Vanessa's snide comments and Nicholas's dismissals. But this time was different. This time I had proof. Heather returned with 2 police officers. Through the small window in my hospital room door, I saw Vanessa's perfectly composed face crumble as they approached. Nicholas looked confused, then angry as one officer took out a notebook. "Mrs. Reynolds," Heather said, holding my phone, "would you like to press charges?" I took a deep breath, ignoring the pain in my ribs. "Yes," I said firmly. "Yes, I would." Vanessa's indignant screech echoed through the hallway as the officers began questioning her. "This is ridiculous. Nicholas, tell them. Tell them your wife is unstable." But Nicholas wasn't looking at his mother. He was staring at my phone screen, watching the footage play out in horrible clarity. His face had gone pale, his hands trembling as he watched his mother, the woman he'd always defended, try to kill his wife. The next few days passed in a blur of police statements, medical examinations, and uncomfortable silences. I was released from the hospital with strict instructions to rest and a prescription for pain medication that made the world feel slightly fuzzy around the edges. Nicholas insisted I come home, but I chose to stay with my sister Julia instead. After being discharged, Julia drove me to her house on the other side of town where I'd be staying during my recovery. "He let her have a key to your house without asking you," Julia fumed as she helped me settle into her guest room. "And he's been defending her behavior for 3 years. Olivia, I knew it was bad, but this—" I watched her arrange my medications on the bedside table, thinking about the past 3 years. The missing jewelry that Vanessa had claimed I must have misplaced. The family heirlooms that disappeared when she visited, only to show up in her house as things Nicholas gave her. The constant comments about my housekeeping, my cooking, my appearance, all met with Nicholas's standard response. "Mom's just trying to help." My phone buzzed again. Another message from Nicholas. "Please come home, we need to talk about this. Mom's been arrested and they're treating her like a criminal." "She is a criminal," Julia snapped, reading over my shoulder. "She literally tried to harm you intentionally." The preliminary hearing was scheduled for the following week. The evidence was damning. Not just the security footage, but the hospital records showing Vanessa's deliberate delay in calling for help. The detective assigned to my case, a no-nonsense woman named Detective Reyes, had more questions. She'd given me her card at the hospital and called me the day after I was discharged to arrange a meeting at the police station. "Mrs. Reynolds, we found something interesting while executing the search warrant at your mother-in-law's house," she said, spreading photographs across the table. "Do you recognize these items?" My breath caught. Neatly laid out were all my missing possessions. My grandmother's sapphire necklace, my mother's pearl earrings, even my engagement ring from my first fiancé who had died in a car accident, something I'd tearfully searched for months ago. "She took them," I whispered. "All those times she said I was careless, that I lost things. We also found this." Detective Reyes slid another photo across the table. It was Vanessa's phone, open to a text conversation with Nicholas from 3 months ago. "Olivia's becoming a problem. She's not good enough for you. Remember Megan? She knew her place. We need to do something about this one." Megan, Nicholas's first wife, who had mysteriously fallen down the same stairs 5 years ago. She had survived, but moved away immediately after, divorcing Nicholas and refusing to speak to anyone about what happened. "We've contacted Megan," Detective Reyes said quietly. "She's willing to testify." The implications hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just about me. Vanessa had done this before. And Nicholas, had he known? Had he suspected? That evening, Nicholas showed up at Julia's house. I wasn't surprised. He'd been to holiday gatherings at her place and knew exactly where she lived. "Olivia, please," he said when I agreed to talk to him on the porch. "You have to understand. Mom, she's not well. She needs help, not jail. If you drop the charges—" "Did you know?" I interrupted. "About Megan? About what your mother did to her?" His silence was answer enough. "They found my things, Nicholas. Everything she stole. Everything you told me I was careless enough to lose." My voice was steady despite the trembling in my hands. "The police found her text to you about me being a problem, about doing something about me." "I never thought she'd actually hurt you," he protested weakly. "She's my mother. And I'm your wife." The words burst out of me, years of suppressed anger finally breaking free. "You gave her a key without asking me. You dismissed every concern, every fear. You watched her steal from me, belittle me, break me down piece by piece, and you did nothing. You chose her over me every single time." "Olivia, no," I cut him off. "I'm done. The police are reopening Megan's case. Your mother is going to face consequences for what she's done, and so are you." "What does that mean?" I pulled an envelope from my pocket, papers my lawyer had drawn up that morning. "It means I'm pressing charges against your mother for attempted murder and theft, and I'm divorcing you for conspiracy and emotional abuse." He stared at the envelope, his face draining of color. "You can't do this. We can work this out once Mom gets help." "Your mother pushed me down the stairs and watched me lie there injured for 15 minutes before calling for help. And you?" I laughed bitterly. "You told me I needed therapy for being paranoid. Well, guess what? The cameras I installed proved I wasn't paranoid at all." I stood up, ignoring the pain in my ribs. "The detective found your mother's diary during the search of her home, Nicholas. Pages and pages about how she got rid of Megan, how she was planning to get rid of me, and your texts encouraging her protective behavior. You're not innocent in this." His face crumpled, the facade of concerned husband finally cracking. "I'll lose everything. My job, my reputation." "You should have thought about that before you chose your mother over your wife's safety. Twice." I turned to go back inside, then paused. "Oh, and Nicholas?" "I'm keeping the house. It turns out attempting to harm your daughter-in-law is a great way to void any claim to property. Your lawyer can contact mine about the rest." I closed the door on his stunned face, leaning against it as Julia wrapped me in a gentle hug. "You did it," she whispered. "You're free." For the first time since my fall, I felt like I could breathe properly again. The truth was finally out, and neither Vanessa nor Nicholas could hurt me anymore. 6 months later, after a series of preliminary hearings and legal proceedings that had dominated my life since the incident, I sat in the courtroom watching Vanessa's carefully maintained composure crack as the judge delivered her sentence. 15 years for attempted murder, with additional charges for theft and the reopened case with Megan. The evidence had been overwhelming. The security footage, her diary detailing both attacks, and Megan's powerful testimony about her own experience. "She told me I was never good enough for her Nicholas," Megan had testified, her hands shaking but her voice strong. "Then one day, after months of psychological abuse, she pushed me down those same stairs. When I tried to tell Nicholas, he said I was confused from the fall. I knew then I had to leave." Nicholas hadn't fared much better. His text messages and documented pattern of enabling his mother's behavior had led to charges of conspiracy and accessory after the fact. He'd lost his job at the law firm when the story broke, his reputation in shambles. The divorce had been finalized 3 months ago, with the judge granting me full ownership of our house and a substantial settlement given the circumstances. Nicholas had been sentenced to 5 years probation and mandatory counseling. As the bailiff led Vanessa away, she turned to look at me one last time. The hatred in her eyes was still there, but now it was tinged with something else. Defeat. She'd lost everything. Her freedom, her social standing, and most importantly, her control. "You did the right thing," Detective Reyes said, touching my shoulder gently as we left the courthouse. We'd exchanged phone numbers early in the investigation, and she'd become both a professional ally and supportive presence throughout the legal proceedings. "Your case has encouraged 3 other women to come forward about similar experiences with their mothers-in-law. You've started something important here." I thought about those other women as I drove home from the courthouse to my newly renovated house. The first thing I'd done after the divorce was replace the stairs, not out of fear, but as a symbol of reclaiming my space. The security cameras stayed, though, a reminder that trusting my instincts had saved my life. Julia had helped me redecorate, removing every trace of Vanessa's influence. The stolen items she'd taken from me now sat proudly displayed in my bedroom, each one a testament to my resilience. My grandmother's sapphire necklace caught the light as I passed my dresser, no longer hidden in Vanessa's jewelry box. The doorbell rang. Megan, right on time for our weekly coffee meeting. We'd formed an unexpected friendship during the trial, bonding over our shared experiences and recovery. After connecting through Detective Reyes during the investigation, we'd begun meeting regularly to support each other through the legal process. "The house looks amazing," she said, settling onto my new sofa. "So different from when we were trying to please her," I finished, handing her a cup of coffee. I know, everything then had to be beige and proper. Now it's all about what makes me happy. Megan smiled, touching the bright throw pillow beside her. I did the same thing after I left. Painted my whole apartment purple just because I could. Nicholas hated purple. We shared a knowing look, both understanding the small acts of rebellion that helped us reclaim our lives. "Have you heard?" Megan asked, pulling out her phone. "They're starting a support group for women with abusive in-laws. They want us to speak at their first meeting." I looked at the website she showed me. Breaking the Silence. Recognizing and responding to in-law abuse. The homepage featured resources, warning signs, and stories from survivors. "We should do it," I said, surprising myself with my enthusiasm. If I had known about other cases like ours, maybe I would have installed those cameras sooner. "Speaking of cameras," Megan grinned, "that security company that supplied your system? They want to feature your story in their new domestic safety campaign. Apparently, their sales of indoor security cameras have tripled since your case made the news." I laughed, thinking about how Vanessa had always hated technology. She would hate knowing she's become a cautionary tale. Later that evening, after Megan left, I stood in my kitchen. My kitchen decorated my way, organized my way. I felt a profound sense of peace. The local news had called my case a watershed moment in recognizing in-law abuse. But for me, it was simpler than that. I trusted my instincts, protected myself, and refused to be silenced. My phone buzzed with a text from Detective Reyes. "Another case today. Woman installed cameras after reading about you. Caught her mother-in-law tampering with her medication. She's safe now. Thought you'd want to know." In the months since the trial, Detective Reyes had kept me updated on similar cases, maintaining the professional relationship we'd developed during the investigation. I smiled, running my hand along my new countertop. Vanessa had always criticized my choice of home decor, but now every bright color and modern fixture felt like a victory. I learned that sometimes the happy ending isn't about forgiveness or reconciliation. Sometimes it's about breaking free, finding your voice, and helping others find theirs. The support group meeting was scheduled for next week. My story would be the first one shared, not as a victim's tale, but as a roadmap for other women. How to recognize the signs, how to protect yourself, and most importantly, how to reclaim your life. My security cameras blinked quietly in their corners, now less about protection and more about remembrance. They had given me back my power, my voice, and my future. In the end, Vanessa's attempt to silence me had only made me louder, stronger, and more determined to ensure no other woman would suffer in silence as Megan and I had. As I got ready for bed that night, I caught my reflection in the mirror and saw something that had been missing during my years with Nicholas and Vanessa. Peace. I was finally, truly free.